Welcome to episode number 130 of the Marine Layer podcast. We welcome on former Mariners pitcher Casey Sadler. We chat about his rehab back from injury, his new podcast, and some of his favorite memories from that really fun 2021 season he spent with the Mariners. We have our two Mariners storylines. We'll answer the question, has this offense done enough against the elite arms they've faced so far this season? And we'll build the lineup now that JP Crawford is back and good to go.
Here's your guys' reminder. Don't miss any of our stuff. Stay on top of all of our content. You can do that in a few different ways. Make sure to download these podcast episodes if you're listening. Leave a 5-star review. Leave a written review. Rate and review. All that good stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. Throw a like on this video. Leave us a comment down below as well. And then check us out on social media too. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. On one from Jansen. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game at 7-7.
And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network. Recording post-game here on Monday, May 20th. As you might have heard, the Mariners had a pretty cool comeback in Game 1 against the Yankees tonight, but not the biggest story of that game, Lyle. Somehow, some way, after the Mariners come back down in that game to win 5-4, Aaron Rodgers ends up in the Mariners clubhouse post-game. What?
So, I have two reactions to that. Number one, that was not on my bingo card this year, and I know it wasn't on yours either.
No. No.
And number two, here's a little message to everybody in the Mariners clubhouse tonight. Cover your ears, please. Thank you.
Of all of the people I imagined spending part of a post-game skirmish, discussion, whatever, in the Mariners clubhouse this season, of all of the people, I think Pitbull had a better chance of ending up in the Mariners clubhouse after the game. So him and Divish could have chopped it up a little bit. I would have put Pitbull over Aaron Rodgers.
Which song is Pitbull blasting in front of Divish to really get his gears going? Like, Don't Stop the Party?
Sure.
After a win like that?
Sure, yeah. Sure. So, like, he's there, I think, because Scott Service, big Packer fan, and Rodgers was already in the stadium as an invite from Marcus Stroman. I'm assuming Aaron knew that Scott was a big Packer fan and made his way down there. I don't know. Like maybe he's a low key like Luis Arias fan.
Maybe. Well, Carson Vitale's a Packer fan too. There's other guys on that staff that are Packer fans. So
yeah. Who do you think is his favorite man? Is his favorite Mariner Luis? What do we think?
Did those two?
Julio?
Do we think they knew each other at all?
No. Well, there might have been a tiny bit of crossover. I was kind of joking. I'm like, well, Brewer, Packer. Yeah.
That's the only connection I can think of. I didn't even know him and Marcus Stroman were friends. I guess they are.
Interesting.
I don't know how we wound up in that Mariners clubhouse. Yeah. Maybe Scott had somebody send a message to Aaron saying, "Hey, we'd love to have you stop by after the game," and he did. I don't know. Maybe Aaron already knew. I have no idea how he wound up in that clubhouse.
The big question I want to know, was Scott Service more of a Brett Favre guy or an Aaron Rodgers guy? Because given Scott's age, wouldn't you think he'd be more of a Brett Favre guy?
But you don't stop being a Packer fan.
Well,
Scott Service watched Aaron Rodgers win him a Super Bowl.
That's true. It's true. Yeah, I mean, you take it all. I don't know where Brett's doing. I don't think Brett would attend a Yankee Mariner game at the stadium. So, man.
Probably not.
No.
In 20 years, if whoever the Seahawks quarterback is then wins them a Super Bowl, and somebody asks us, were we more Russell Wilson guys or whoever the new quarterback is, what are we going to say? Honestly, my answer will probably be the new guy.
Probably.
So
Probably. Yeah, that's good. Just really weird, man. Really, it pops up on my Twitter feed. I'm like, there is no way. Out of every Major League Baseball game this man could have attended, he chose this one.
to watch the Seattle Mariners take down the Yankees, which, man, crazy comeback. And as you tweeted tonight, shout out to Andres Munoz. There is no human being on earth who can hit the pitch that he threw to strike out Aaron Judge. That is 101, pure paint. Could not have been spotted up any better. Unreal.
101 backdoor sinker that moved, starts off the plate and cuts back in and barely, by a seam, catches the outside corner to strike out one of the greatest hitters of this generation.
Mm-hmm.
Truly an unbelievable pitch. I'll say I was nervous. It was a little bit of a nerve-wracking ninth inning, especially after you see one of the other great hitters of this generation, the batter before. Munoz makes a pretty similar pitch to Soto. This time it was a 99-mile-an-hour sinker off the plate to Soto, a left-hand hitter. And Soto effortlessly just goes, boom, just flicks it in left field. Just effortlessly. But Judge couldn't do that. Man, he threw a nasty slider to Volpe, too. It was really unbelievable, man. Like, the pressure that's on Andres Munoz nowadays with the state of the rest of the bullpen, it really cannot be understated how much pressure is on this dude day in and day out, especially when he's on the mound. He has to close because there is no one behind him. Not really. Not to what the Mariners are asking of him in that bullpen.
I know there's not many relievers each year that make the All-Star game, and sometimes those reliever nods are given to teams that don't have anybody else that's worthy of being in the All-Star game. But man, I'll tell you, Andres Munoz has a real case for it right now. And I know there's guys in the American League that are just dominating right now. I'm sure Mason Miller is going to be an All-Star at this rate. Clay Holmes, aside from tonight, is probably an All-Star at this rate. But I hope Munoz gets some real consideration because, like you said, he is so valued right now on this team. And he's just been flat out dominant since that Brewers outing. Dude's been borderline untouchable.
He might be the most valuable reliever in baseball right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just based on everything around him.
Mm-hmm.
Most valuable.
Right. He might not be the single best one. Again, it's probably Mason Miller right now. But to your point, when you factor in how important he is to the bullpen right now, there's a real argument for that. Like, if you take Andres Munoz out of this bullpen, what does it look like? I don't want to think about that. I really
Seriously,
don't.
Like, think about the other important steps of this game. Like, it felt like the Mariners in this game one, not threw in the towel, but, Kirby Snead was pitching against the top of the lineup, down 2 runs in the 7th inning. Right? Like, that, it just, it kind of gives you the feeling that, probably isn't it. It probably is. You're probably not expecting to get to Munoz at that point. If that's the move you make in a moment like that, seeing how decimated the Mariners bullpen is, it just puts it into just so much more perspective. Just how incredible the comeback is. Shout out the offense for looking just awful, just terrible all night. But against one of the best closers in the American League this year, who had not given up an earned run, they put up a 4 spot and win. Sometimes that happens. It's baseball. You put together a few good at-bats against the best stuff you've seen all night, and you score 4 runs. Why not?
It's a little fluky. I wouldn't rely on that all the time. Just how the Mariners got to Yennier Cano on Saturday. They get to Clay Holmes on Monday. I wouldn't exactly rely on that strategy, trying to square up some of the best relievers in baseball, because it doesn't work all that often. But they'll take the 2 wins they got from it.
Let's get into our Mariners storylines, because I think the issue of not scoring runs earlier in the game relates to what our first storyline is about. And I propose a question to you. Based on, we saw a really good pitching performance from Marcus Stroman tonight. He went 7+ and allowed just the solo home run to Dominic Canzone. I don't know if I would put Marcus Stroman in this caliber of arm, but the question is on this first storyline, Lyle. Has this lineup done enough against quote-unquote elite arms so far this season?
So I know everybody's initial reaction to this is going to be no, because the storyline around the team has been the offense through the first almost 2 months of the season and the lack of production that's come with it at times. But we detailed this all out preparing for this show, and you really went into depth about you really went in depth to it a little bit about what they've done against each specific arm that you could qualify as an elite arm and what they've done. I think the issue around the offense is more about what they have or have not done against some of the next tier of arms, the middle tier arms, the mid to bottom tier arms that they haven't capitalized enough against. Against the actual elite arms that they've seen, it's about the rate that you would expect from any team.
I think they've done a serviceable job against elite arms. What spurred this idea? The Mariners looked uncompetitive against Corbin Burnes on Sunday. It was a total mismatch. He chewed them up and spit them out for the Orioles, and that's what an ace does. He goes in, he uses his elite stuff, and he dominates the Mariners lineup, and that's exactly what he did. 6 innings, 1 earned run, 11 strikeouts. That's what an ace does. But if you map up all the other guys that the Mariners, the top tier guys that the Mariners have faced this year, it's really not as bad as you would think. So Corbin, again, 6 innings, 11 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 earned run. Brady Singer, 5 innings, 9 hits, 4 earned. Brady's been awesome this year. Mariners got to him. Mariners ended up winning that game. Against Pablo Lopez of the Twins, 6 1/3, 10 strikeouts, 1 earned run. Lost. Okay. Framber Valdez, they got to him. 5 1/3 innings, 9 hits, 5 earned, just 3 strikeouts. Mariners won that game. Struggled against Chris Sale, 5 innings, 9 strikeouts, just 1 earned. Struggled against Max Fried, 6 innings, no hits, 7 strikeouts. Mariners came back and won because of Mitch Garver's walk-off home run. They got to Zach Gallen, just 5 innings, 3 earned, 3 strikeouts. And again, the Mariners won. Shota Imanaga, they gave to him at that point his worst start of the season, 5 1/3, 5 hits, 1 run, unearned, 4 strikeouts. Mariners ended up losing that game. They got to Freddie Peralta, 5 2/3, 4 hits, 3 earned, 7 strikeouts. In a game they lost, but they did their job knocking the starter out. And then Shane Bieber had 6 shutout innings against them. Cutter Crawford had 6 innings and didn't allow an earned run. Those are all of the top tier arms that I qualify the Mariners have faced this season. And if you do the math on that, that is 4 times out of 11 elite arms they've faced this season that they have knocked the starter out and given themselves a chance to win the game. And that's all you can ask for against an elite starting pitcher. That's a little bit under 50%, that rate right there. If you say, okay, 45-ish% of the time you can knock an elite arm off the mound and give yourself a chance to win the game, you're taking that every single time. And that's what this lineup has done so far.
It's been a little more than a third that they've gotten to these elite starters. How many other teams are just knocking around elite starters consistently? I don't think there is many. There's a reason these guys are called elite, because they do not get hit around very often. Now, if the Mariners had had 1 good outing against all these arms in 11 tries, we'd be having a different conversation. But it hasn't been 1 good outing. They've had about 4 in 11 tries. And again, they've hit some good arms. The 4 they hit, Brady Singer, Framber Valdez, Zach Gallen, Freddie Peralta. Those are some really good arms. And the Mariners got to them. They didn't get to everybody, but they got to a few of these elite arms. Again, I think the issue here is now look at what they've done against some of the 3 and 4 starters in some rotations when they're expected to be a lot better and they haven't capitalized. That's more where the talking points lie and should lie. I don't think what they have or have not done against elite starters is the reason the offense isn't where everybody wants it to be at right now.
And the next tier of starters can be anywhere from a good starter to, like you said, like a middle tier, or then just bottom starter. Marcus Stroman, who pitched on Monday, we throw in the good bucket. He's good. Grayson Rodriguez, who pitched on Saturday before Corbin Burnes, we put in the good bucket. Mariners did okay against him, but largely he had success against the Mariners lineup. But some of the other times I think of this year, Lyle, Simeon Woods Richardson dominated the Mariners, just crushed them. Nick Pivetta, before he got hurt, pitched really well against the Mariners in the first series of the season. Chris Paddock has been an okay big leaguer, dominated the Mariners. Slade Ciccone, do you know?
I'm going to have to do this for you, aren't I?
Ciccone, okay. Oh, the Diamondbacks? Yeah, he was, remember him? He was shoving.
Yeah.
You say?
I'll throw in another, and I think I have to eat some crow here. Because when the Mariners did absolutely nothing against Javier Assad for the Cubs, I said, this dude looks like he should essentially be, I don't know, working at an Apple store or something like that. I was basically like, he's short, he's stocky, he doesn't look like an athlete at all. The Mariners should light him up. No, Javier Assad's actually been really good. Like ever since that start, it's kind of taken off for him. And he had a good year last year, but he was mostly out of the bullpen. It's taken off for him since then. And the Mariners, again, there's another good starter, maybe not ace, that the Mariners didn't do enough against.
Yeah. Jose Barrios, too.
Yeah.
So all those guys the Mariners faced and were largely uncompetitive against while they were in the game. So, like, that's ultimately where the problem lies. And most people, I think, would agree with us on that. Like, it's facing the next tier down. The Mariners do a good enough job. 36%, I think, is what the rate they give themselves a chance to win against an ace. And that's good enough. It can't also be 36% on the tier below. It's got to be higher than that. Because otherwise, then you'll have more performances like you had on Monday against Marcus Stroman, where the lineup against Stroman largely didn't give themselves a chance to win the game. It was only later in the game against Clay Holmes and stringing together one good inning where they gave themselves an opportunity to win. Sometimes that's all you need, but it's not quite as sustainable as second time through the lineup against a middling starter. Hey, we can get a run or two here. We can get his pitch count up and we can get him out of the game. We can get some of the bad relievers out there and we can give ourselves a fantastic chance to win. And, there's a reason the Mariners haven't done that yet this year. So we put out a clip on Monday from our interview with Ryan Divish, and it was good to sort of go in and rehash what Ryan was saying. And, he's essentially saying how, like, the strikeouts aside, the Mariners' offensive model right now is not really sustainable. They score too many runs on home runs, and it will probably have to come from outside addition. And that, the unsustainability and the inconsistency of the offense is the main reason why they can't consistently beat even these middling starters. So if you haven't seen that clip, go check it out because, Ryan, as always, makes excellent points when analyzing this baseball team. And it's going to be up to, them in the future to win the crucial games against guys they should be beating.
Right. Hopefully they start to get to some of these starters that they're supposed to take advantage of more. And part of that's going to be the three guys in the offense that everybody expects to be the driving forces being exactly that. Julio's not at full stride. Mitch Garver's not at full stride. Jorge Polanco's not at full stride. I would think those three playing up to the level that everybody expects them to would change a lot for this offense, but we're not going to know until we see it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And ultimately, the reason why this is so important is because when you reach the playoffs and you want to win in the playoffs, those are the kind of guys you're going to be facing every single day.
Mm-hmm. Hey, shout out Marcus Stroman, though. He's the first first starter to go 7 innings against the Mariners this year.
Woo-hoo-hoo!
Yeah.
I'm glad we can put that stat to rest.
I am too. Well, before we get to our next storyline, let's transition here. Talk to you guys about our friends over at Pagacci's Pub 85. Mariners get a win against the Yankees. They've got a couple more this week. Well, they don't have any off days for a while here. They're just playing game after game after game. So that gives you guys plenty of opportunities. Go on and watch the games with your friends. Head over there if you're going to go watch the games. Play some pool, you can play some darts, have some great food. You show up during happy hour, you're going to get some great happy hour specials. It's a long happy hour too. It's 2 to 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday. There's $3 domestic beers, $4 Manny's and Blue Moons, $4 Mac and Jacks, $4 Wells, and $4 house wines. All of that and a great time with your friends. That's over at Pagacci's Pub 85 in Kirkland. Storyline number 2. JP Crawford's back. That's great. Everybody's happy to see that. With the return of JP, who actually did have a couple of bats on Monday, he came in the game late. He didn't start. But this is going to cause Scott Service to make some decisions with the lineup. What do we think that lineup's going to look like? We are not Scott Service. However, the two of us, Lyle and TJ, decided how would we construct this lineup? So we're going to sit here and do exactly that.
I had 2 guesses. One with Julio staying in his normal spot and one with Julio getting moved down, potentially.
That's what I have. And it's
you did the same thing? Okay.
Well, and it's kind of dependent on if it's a righty or lefty on the mound.
Right. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna err on the side of him not getting sent down, and so the first lineup I built, I'm putting J.P. Crawford back at the leadoff spot. Josh Rojas, by the way, 2 for his last 26. So an excuse to put a little pressure, take a little pressure off of him, would move him down in the lineup. So JP leads off, Julio bats second, Cal bats third, Mitch Garver bats fourth, Luke Raley bats fifth, Josh Rojas bats sixth, Jorge Polanco, assuming he's healthy, bats 7th. Dom Canzone bats 8th. And Ty France bats 9th, Lyle. Because
Okay.
no one else really looks like a 9-hitter, and Rojas is hitting too good overall still to drop him back down to the 9 spot. So Scott, honestly, might put Rojas at 9 and shift everyone else up 1, but I'm going to leave it at that for now.
This sounds closer to what a left-handed lineup would look, or a lineup would look like with a left-handed pitcher on the mound. I know you still had Rojas in this lineup, but that's the lineup I'll read first in terms of the 2 I wrote out. I had JP, Julio, Polanco, Cal, Garver, Haniger, Canzone, assuming Canzone and Rayleigh between those 2 would be the guy to hit lefties, Canzone.
Mm-hmm.
Ty France 8, Luis Urias 9. So, okay, Rojas isn't in this lineup, but the one that I expect to get potentially rolled out a little bit more is the one I got to next.
Well, the other one I have is a Julio being moved down in the lineup, which is up to everyone's discretion on when or if that happens this season. So this other one I have, which is there would be a righty on the mound. JP leads off. Josh Rojas bats 2nd. Cal bats 3rd. Mitch Garver bats cleanup. Rayleigh 5th. Julio 6th. Polo 7th. Ty 8th. Dom Canzone 9th.
Oh, you actually moved Julio way down in the lineup.
Oh, I was serious.
Okay. I moved him down, but here's what mine looks like. It's not. You can put JP or Rojas wherever you want between these 2. I put Rojas at 1 just because he's been the hotter bat this year, but the order I have against righties would go Rojas, JP, Julio 3rd, so not that different. Cal 4, Polo 5, Garver 6, Rayleigh 7, Ty 8, Canzone 9.
Julio might not actually get moved down that far, but I see enough talk about it. So I thought it at least needed to be thrown in there. But overall, I think you and I come back to the same conclusion that JP is your leadoff hitter.
I had Rojas as the leadoff guy in this lineup, but again, it's very adjustable. If I see JP Crawford hitting leadoff going forward, I'd say, yeah, sure, makes sense. Yeah, he can be the leadoff hitter. He probably will be the leadoff hitter. Yeah.
I would just say I would say it makes more sense right now for JP to lead off, and it's the saying that these things usually work themselves out. Like we're sitting here thinking, who's going to lead off when JP comes back? Rojas has been so good, and then Rojas goes on a really cold streak. And that kind of answers your question. Like maybe Scott Service just thinks like, okay, like Rojas has been good, it's been really fun. But I like the idea, and it benefits the lineup more to put Rojas back in the 9 hole and put JP at leadoff to hit it in front of Julio, essentially. 2 guys hitting in front of Julio.
It's possible. Although this 2 for 26 thing for Rojas, of course that was going to happen at some point. Did anybody expect Josh Rojas to hit 350 all year? That's not fair.
No, it's not. It's not fair.
At some point, there was going to be some...
But Scott overall might just like that lineup construction better and think that gives him an opportunity to score more runs.
Yeah, it's possible, because if you have a really good 9-hitter, it's like having a second leadoff hitter. Although, I don't think it's some slap in the face to Julio if you ask him to hit 3rd, and Rojas and JP are 1-2.
I also don't think that's a problem. The only difference is we know Scott doesn't like to stack 2 lefties in a row, if he can help it.
Yeah, so that could create some maneuvering for sure. And yeah, in the lineup I have here, Canzone hits 9. So if Scott doesn't like a pocket of 3 straight lefties, especially late in games for relievers, then maybe they wouldn't do that.
Right. And if you would say, all right, you want to split them up, but you wouldn't hit Rojas 3rd and you wouldn't hit JP 3rd either. Like maybe last year's version of JP could technically hit 3rd, but we haven't seen that version of JP yet, and we'd like to get him in the leadoff spot to sort of get to that point. Right. And you wouldn't go JP Julio Rojas or Rojas Julio JP. Like, so, we'll have to see. I'm guessing on Tuesday, JP Crawford will be in the lineup that he played tonight and he played on Monday and he was activated. So we'll see what Scott Service rolls out there. But I ultimately think the Mariners are best when they put JP in the leadoff spot. Where Rojas hits, I'll trust Scott Service to that. If they want to hit him 2nd, okay. If they want to drop him down to maybe 5th, okay, that works fine as well. Or if they feel like he's better suited back in the 9 hole and they hit him in front of JP Crawford to walk and get get on in front of JP, who heats up and knocks him in, and then Julio hopefully eventually starts elevating the ball a little bit more and drives in both those guys as well, and ultimately would lead to a significantly more productive Mariners lineup.
Josh Rojas hitting nines worked seamlessly ever since he got traded over here. Last year when he got traded here and they put him in the 9 spot, remember how good his August was? Worked perfectly. Flipped it right back to JP Crawford. So if you have this version of Josh Rojas and JP starts to get going, yeah, I've got no issues or quarrels with that at all to hit Rojas in 9. I was just thinking if you want to try and get him more bats, you hit him higher in the order. But if it's that important to Scott to make sure he's not stacking lefty after lefty after lefty, then maybe it makes more sense to hit Rojas 9. And that's fine. Whatever they think is going to help win them games.
The problem is right now, so your two best corner outfielders are both lefties. And then the two infielders you want to be the best hitting two are both left-handed. And they both have similar-ish offensive profiles. JP has a little bit more power, but both him and Rojas walk quite a bit. And then so you just need to be able to find a way to break up Dom, Luke, and then Rojas and JP, because they won't all hit near each other.
It's probably why, again, in the lineup I threw out here, if Rayleigh hits 7th, Ty hits 8th, Canzone hits 9.
Would you want to hit Rayleigh 7th for as well as he's been hitting?
You could move him up. You could hit him 6. That's fine too. It does the semantics there are just, it's not that big of a difference. Also, if a lefty's on the mound, this is not what the lineup's going to look like either. Now, the Mariners will see more righties than lefties, but again, with a lefty on the mound, Haniger will be in there, Urias will be in there. It's going to look different.
Right.
So,
hey, and who would have thought roster versatility's back? I missed it.
You love to see it. They are getting pretty close to being fully healthy offensively here. JP Crawford, as of Monday night, played in the game, activated off the IL. He's back. Jorge Polanco has not gone on the IL, and they said here on Monday he was available off the bench. So I would assume either Tuesday or Wednesday he's going to be in the lineup. And once he's back, that's your offense.
Yeah. And you're right. You'd be fully healthy. It is telling that they haven't put him on the IL so far. And it's good because he got to take his trip to New York and eat pizza. So where do you think he went?
Jorge Polanco's a big pizza guy. If you checked out our social clip here on Monday morning, you know that.
Yeah.
My hope is he went to Joe's Pizza because that is New York's best.
Yeah. That would have been good. It helps heal.
Maybe we'll have to ask Polo the next time we ask or talk to him or see him, just because I'm sure, we were talking about this over text the other day, but you said, I'm sure he's got some spot in New York he likes for pizza. He's such a big pizza guy, but where that is, we don't know, because New York has a million good pizza spots. I'm
sure most of these guys would, because every American League team will take a trip there a year. So they have to have an idea. And look at it on the calendar, 4 days, 3 days essentially. And then you'll leave on Thursday after you play the game, but a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, there is. So if Jorge really is a pizza connoisseur, I'm sure he carves out some time to at least get a slice during the trip. So where that is, we'll have to find out. And you and I could rattle off New York pizza places forever. But just to name the one, I hope he went to Joe's Pizza.
Let's just hope it wasn't Sbarro.
What person goes to New York and actually get Sbarro pizza? You know what's funny? Sbarro used to have that huge shop in Times Square.
Yeah.
There's a huge Sbarro in Times Square. At least there was. And I think
there still is one there. There's one near there.
Well, no, I was going to say, while I was there this winter, I think it's gone, which makes a lot of sense because, again, what person, you're in New York, you have a chance to get pizza and you walk into Sbarro. There's I don't care.
There's there are a lot of tourists who
but I don't care if you're
see the big sign.
Okay, but I don't care if you're living there or visiting there. There is no person who possibly in their right mind says of all the New York pizza places, we're going to Sbarro.
I guarantee you there are international tourists who go to Sbarro. And then there might just be people who like Sbarro. Unfortunately, it's why would you ever go to another burger place? Why would you go to McDonald's if you go to all these other burger places? And yet so many people still go to McDonald's.
I don't know if that's the same thing.
No, I think it's pretty close. And again, I think there would be a lot of tourism a lot of international tourists who would think that is a New York slice. And credit to them. Like if that's the New York slice they want to get, all power to them. It's like if I were to go to Europe and I went to an ultimate like tourist pastry shop or something, and those people look, oh, what an idiot. Why would he ever go there?
Yeah.
Right?
Again, McDonald's is so much bigger than Sbarro is. So I don't know if that's a perfect comparison. Again, like there's a Joe's Pizza in Times Square. There's other pizza places. There's a reason that
right.
there's a reason that Sbarro closed. That's all I'm going to say.
I would say it probably doesn't drive the traffic as the other places does. But as long as they're open, that means someone's eating there.
Right. Exactly. Well, if we find out where Jorge Polanco gets pizza in New York, we can report back here.
Yeah, we'll try and figure out. Hopefully no one else ate Sbarro. Let's hope. Hope. We'll do some investigating. It was good having Casey Sadler on, Lyle. Good, like he had such an awesome year in 2021. I think like he was a big part of what ushered in this era of bullpen pitching of Mariners baseball. He was a part of the Steckenrider Sewald bucket. Right? Scott likes to say this is Steckenrider bucket, but he was part of the original big three: Sadler, Steckenrider, and Sewald in 2021. What a fun bullpen that was. Casey was a huge part of it and a huge part of like launching this roster into eventual playoff contention in 2022 and into the playoffs in 2022. It just is so cool getting his perspective on all these things. He's had quite the journey since that 2021 season. He's been injured. He's working his way back, and hopefully here soon he'll get a tryout while he explores some other hobbies.
Yeah, he's certainly working his way back. We get into that during the interview. He's certainly still motivated to keep playing. If you've seen him on Twitter, he certainly still has plenty of love for the city of Seattle and the Pacific Northwest. Is there a chance he could end back up as a Mariner? I certainly wouldn't rule it out. Again, you can listen to the interview, see what he has to say about it. But such an awesome dude, down to earth, genuine. You can tell he really cares about people, about the game, and he's such an easy guy to root for. We are certainly rooting for Casey Sadler going forward, and I'm sure plenty of you guys are fans of him already, but after this conversation, I'm guessing it'll only level up.
And hey, as you all know, Mariners could use some bullpen help. So we won't keep you any longer, though. Let's get you to our interview with Casey Sadler.
All right, we've got former Mariners reliever Casey Sadler on with us, now host of the Dirt on the Diamond podcast, and we're really, really excited to have him on. So thanks for hopping on, Casey. What drove you to start a podcast all of a sudden? There's so many people out there these days with a podcast. That's kind of the saying these days, right? Everybody has a podcast, but you've got a really unique angle on yours. So what drove you to do this?
Downtime, to be honest with you, like just with the way my off season has gone and it necessarily didn't go as expected. But at that point it was like, okay, like what can we do to kind of pass the time, to stay relevant in the baseball world, to also tell our journey and our story. It's been a really kind of unique one, and also be able to bring in other players, coaches, agents, like whoever can kind of tell what happens behind the scenes, and, share some funny stories along the way, and just enjoy staying in kind of that baseball world, I guess. And so, yeah, we just kind of started spitballing ideas and how do we want to go about this, and it just kind of grew from there. It was a little awkward at first. I think the first few episodes have, been a little awkward for us to try to figure out kind of our rhythm, but I feel like we're doing really good. And it's a lot of fun.
So, like, what's sort of, if you're looking into the future, say like a few months from now or 6 months from now, how does it evolve? Because I know you guys focus a lot on storytelling now. You guys just had Alana Rizzo on and sort of venturing into the interview space of the podcast. So, how do you see the content taking shape as it goes forward?
It just kind of is fluid, I guess. If it is going to center more so around of like I said, the journey of what it's like to be a minor leaguer, what it's like to be a professional baseball player off of the field, and how that is integrated into how you perform and what you're able to do on the field, and just this whole life of what it's like from the beginning to wherever you end up, So I just see it kind of being fluid. If there's something that comes up that we find is interesting, or if there's a memory that's jogged in us that, we feel like other people might be interested in. And then it's just finding people to come on and talk and just share their stories, give people a platform to, kind of dialogue back and forth with us, tell their journey. Because everybody's journey is different, and the reporters out there and the journalists and stuff, they try to tell the story as good as they can, but like sometimes the person to tell it best is that person or their family or whatever. And so that's kind of the premise of it. And just hope that it grows, and hope that it turns into something that people can enjoy and will hop on board with, and just kind of see a different side of baseball.
Where did you draw inspiration from?
My wife. She's pretty much the driving force behind this. I've always been on board, and it's like I said, it's been something we've talked about, but she's really been the one that's been like, look, our story is unique, our journey is unique. It's been 15 years now, coming from a small town in Oklahoma that nobody's ever heard of to being able to play on some of the biggest fields and with some of the biggest people and, the biggest stages in all of baseball. And so it was just like, why not tell your story? I get asked all the time about like, what's it like? What is it? What's travel like? What's lower minor league travel like? What is, all these things that, what do you do for your free time during the season when you're at the field for 12, 13 hours a day, So I think that's kind of what spurred it. And then my wife just kind of took it and ran with it. And she's super good at, getting stuff flowing. And that's just kind of how it took off.
Do you have a dream guest to have on the podcast at some point?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, like anybody that wants to come on, we'll have you. It doesn't matter, who you are or where you've been or what. We've talked about having our agent come on. We've talked about having past coaches, guys that I've played with that have been out of baseball for a while now that are, kind of doing different things. And so like, it is going to be what it is, I guess. Hopefully there's other people that, we'll reach out eventually. And we've got some people listed that we want to reach out to that are just absolute characters that I think will put on a pretty good show. But I don't know. I don't know where it's going to lead. I don't know. We're open to anybody, to be honest with you. Anybody that wants to come on and talk some funny stories and some baseball, and we'll listen and give them the platform and dialogue back and forth.
Have you connected with Trevor May at all?
I haven't.
Well, you're both, I guess now, while you have this downtime, Casey, both, doing some sort of content online, both big league relievers. He's retired now, but
okay. Both
sitting here and now like talking in a microphone. That sounds like a fun combination of like throwing stories back and forth from each other.
Yeah, I'll have to reach out to him for sure.
And he's also in the Seattle area.
Oh, nice. I'm still learning the guys that are in this area. We've been here for a little while now, but most everybody in the off season just kind of does their own thing because they're so busy during the summer that they just want to chill. And, so I'm learning a little bit about who's in the area and who's here and stuff like that. So I'll definitely reach out to him, and we'll try to get something set up, and maybe he can be our first guest.
So here's an idea. Tell me if this is stupid. You take a table, you go to Driveline, you take a table and you plop it down. You set up like 3 microphones and you set up a camera in there. And then you're just like, because there's going to be a bunch of guys that are going to cycle through there. And it's like, hey, man, open invitation. Whoever's going to sit down, let's just chop it up. I think, and I know Driveline's pushing out videos and stuff. They'd love that.
That would be great. Just because they do have such, traffic in the off season. I don't know. I think for me, that might be a little awkward because I would feel like I would be infringing on guys' training time and just the atmosphere of what that gym is. That's a place to go get better at baseball. That's a place to come in and really focus on honing your craft and stuff like that. And so if guys want to come in to Driveline and then they're welcome to come in and do a set with us, or we can do it over the phone or whatever. We have the ability to do that too. And, that'd be great. Awesome. So we'll explore those options once the baseball's over and then go from there.
I think people would be more open to it just because you're a big leaguer. Like, you're not like a media type like us. It's like, oh, who are these guys? It's like, no, like, this is a big league reliever saying, hey, do you want to sit down and chat? And that, I feel like, opens it up a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I kind of hit on it, and Marin kind of hit on it too in the last couple episodes we did with Alana. Like, there is a special place for journalism and for doing it that way. There is a need for that because it is kind of that third party perspective of like, okay, maybe there's different questions that a journalist or a media person might ask. Whereas if it's just two guys or two families going back and forth, it might be a little different, but I think they both carry weight, and things like this, like being able to come on your guys' podcast and kind of tell our story and tell a little bit about what we're trying to do through the podcast is a bigger outreach than what we currently have right now. So that's good for us. And we appreciate that. And I hope that the listeners that end up listening to this will come check us out and follow us and give us some feedback. We're always looking for feedback too, is how do we get better? What do you want to hear more of? What do you want to ask? Is there any questions? Like, we absolutely love when we get questions in our inbox because it's like, oh, I never really thought that somebody might want to know about this or, something like that. So it really does kind of drive our creative minds a little bit. So, that's kind of where.
Well, I know Mariners fans are still very interested in you, and I'm sure people listening to this podcast are going to be interested to check out your podcast. So if I could give them one little teaser by teeing you up for this question for the podcast, I'll go with this. Is there one aspect of the grind of being a baseball player, like the ins and outs, the day-to-days, whether it's in the minors or the majors, that people don't really know about? I think people have a general idea of what it takes to be a big leaguer, but is there something you feel like that's missing that people don't know about in terms of the everyday work that goes into being a ball player?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's different for every player because what might be a grind for someone else might be an integral part of what makes them who they are. I know one thing that I've always not struggled with, but has weighed pretty heavy on me is the time apart from your family and your kids and how much that weighs on some guys, and so that was always the part for me, is to make sure that when I'm at the field or when I'm away from home, I'm not wasting that time because I'm not going to get that time back with my family, so it's like doing everything you can at the field and grinding through even the toughest times to make it worth not being around your kids or getting to spend time with your wife or girlfriend or whoever, and so that, I think that is lost. I think people think of immediately, like if a guy's, maybe a guy's not performing at the level he should, like, oh, maybe he should change up his routine or his training's too much or this or that. But like behind the scenes, you don't know what's going on with that person outside of the baseball realm. And so I think that's the part that might get lost. And I think that's really what we're trying to do with the podcast, is to kind of humanize baseball players and say, hey, look, we are real people. We are not robots. We don't just go to work, show up, and are really good at, these things without sacrificing or without, dealing with issues that people all over the world deal with all the time. So I think that might be a long-winded answer to your question, but I think that's what sticks out to me that kind of gets missed sometimes.
I really like that answer, Casey. That's very, very well thought out, and I guess gives a different perspective to all of the, like, even all the early hours of work that players do. Like if player shows up to the ballpark at like 11, 12 o'clock, just to do that extra stuff, just to consider what they're sacrificing on top of like just like you're getting better, but you are sacrificing more by not being in the other part of your life, and that's where ultimately it comes a balance. I do just want to give you an opportunity. Where are you at progress wise of getting back and being 100%?
I'm getting really close. I'm scheduled to throw another bullpen tomorrow. So going to get some data on that, see kind of where everything is. Everything feels good, ready to go. Itching to go compete again and get back on the field and do what I feel like I should be doing. But that being said, it's been nice to get to spend some time with family and to kick off this podcast. You know, we probably wouldn't have had time to do that if I wouldn't have had the off season that I've had. And so it's been good. But yeah, we're getting real close. I'm hoping, you know, within the next couple of weeks to kind of have an idea of if and where I'll be going. So we'll discuss that with my agent and go from there.
If you feel comfortable, whatever you're comfortable sharing, could you remind the listeners like what since they last saw you on a big league mound in 2021,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things that you've had to deal with injury wise?
Just getting back, you know, and shoulder surgery's it's no joke. No surgery's a joke, but like I've been through TJ and I've been through shoulder surgery now, and shoulder surgery was way harder. And so just building that confidence and getting the time that you need to be both mentally and physically ready to go, because I think the mental part of competing at the major league level is probably more important than the physical part. Like physically as athletes, like we can do it, you know, but like mentally you have to make sure you're there and that you trust your body and that you trust the work that you put in. And I think that was something maybe that it took this off season to kind of learn, is like, oh, like I have to mentally be ready to go out and get Shohei Ohtani out, or Aaron Judge, or, you know, just throw any name out there. And so like we're close, you know. That was something that I didn't necessarily think I was going to have to deal with, was especially coming off of the year that I had in 21, going into shoulder surgery, like, oh man, I'm just going to pick up where I left off. Well, that's not always the case, you know? And so I think I was a little naive in that point, but I got it all figured out now. We're rolling along and the ball seems like it's coming out pretty good, and just ready to go.
So you answered one of the questions I had for you right in that answer, which was you feel like shoulder surgery is actually tougher to recover from than Tommy John, which I feel like I feel like that's gained a little bit more traction over the last few years and people have started to recognize that. But I'll flip the question to this. What makes shoulder surgery tougher to recover from?
I think there's more moving parts. With the elbow, it's just, can you get it to handle the torque? Can you get it to handle those higher end arm speeds? But with the shoulder, it's like the shoulder moves all different ways. There's so much that goes into getting the shoulder to function properly. And especially now with the new brace technique, the things that I'm hearing about that is, you know, it's making TJ even that much more recoverable. Whereas, you know, I'm just speaking from my own experience, I had a lot more aches and pains, and even down to just like the weather, you know, the weather would come and I would really kind of feel there for a little bit like, oh man, like it's going to rain today. You know, you hear that kind of those old grandpa tales of like, oh, it's going to rain because my bones are aching. And I felt that, you know, and so I think just the complexity of the shoulder and all the moving parts and what goes into it makes it maybe a little more difficult. And somebody might have a different opinion, but just for me, that was my experience.
Where was the mental wall it sounded like you faced along in your rehab? Where, like, at what point was it?
I think that it came and went. I think there was times where you go out there and your nails and you're like, okay, yeah, this is great. But then it's like, maybe you go out and through no fault of your own, your velo's down a little bit, or, you know, maybe your control's not there and you're just like, oh man, am I actually ready? Is everything okay? Like nothing hurts, but like, it's not coming out at 93, 94 anymore. It's now 89, 90. And, you know, but not having gone through that or having really talked to anybody that's gone through a shoulder surgery as a pitcher, like to come to find out that all of that is normal and it just takes time, I think was kind of turning point of like, okay, like I just need to trust the process, trust that everything is good, trust that the work that I put in over the duration of the physical therapy is going to hold, and then just go compete and let it eat. And I think there was a turning point somewhere, I think in August, a couple weeks into playing, that it really kind of like was like, okay, like just let it go. And you know, I had a few hiccups in there with some execution stuff that hurt me, you know, in the PCL, but I think it just was more mental than anything, you know, just getting to where you trust your body again after such a long time off.
You know, I do want to ask you about this in terms of you mentioned you think you're getting close. You think your progression's coming toward the end where you feel like you're getting close to getting back into games again. I'm sure you're open to a variety of opportunities. I have no doubt you are. But I know a few weeks ago you put out a tweet that said, Mariners fans, start the petition. I would love to be back in Seattle.
Yeah.
I'd love to keep the scoreless streak going. So
Absolutely.
all of that being said, like if the ball was in your court, if you had your chance to pick, you would still like to be a Mariner, it sounds like.
I mean, as a baseball player, you'll play wherever there's a job, obviously. For us, our home is in Seattle. I feel like because I had a setback last year, there wasn't enough time for me to really kind of work my way back inside the organization. I still do have emotional ties to the streak and it being here in Seattle and in our hometown and all these things. You know, obviously the business side of baseball is much different than what people see or what, you know, maybe you plan out in your head. But yeah, I mean, I would love to be here. I'd love to play baseball again, you know, just to have an opportunity somewhere. And who knows, maybe we go somewhere else and we end up back here, or, you know, we don't, and we find a new home and I put everything that I've got into whatever team. I mean, I played for 5 different teams at this point now. So like, it's really just about getting a job and getting an opportunity to showcase your ability and do what you love, you know. But yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to play in T-Mobile? You know, it's a great pitcher's park. The fans are unbelievable. It's a hometown. My family gets to sleep in their own house and things like that. And so if they came calling, that would definitely be a blessing.
What was it about the Seattle area that made you, at least for now, decide this is where you want home to be?
Family. And we came in 2019 at the end of the season to visit her sister and just loved it. Like, the people are great. The diversity is amazing. The ability to drive a couple hours and go to the ocean, or drive an hour and go skiing in the mountains. And, you know, just being able to get outside. We lived in Florida prior, and there's about 3 weeks where you can comfortably get outside and not have to worry about sweating like crazy. And so just to be able to do more outdoors things and, you know, just things like that, it really kind of drove us to wanting to be here. And, you know, honestly, it's been an amazing decision, and we've loved every minute of living in this area.
I do want to dive into the streak a little bit. So 29 straight scoreless appearances. That's how you ended the year in 2021. You missed a couple months. I remember you were on the IL. Mm-hmm. It was a little bit after you came back when the streak started.
Yeah.
When in your head do you start to realize, oh, it's been a long time since I've given up a run? Like, I know players aren't supposed to think about that, but when do you start to think about it?
Honestly, I didn't even know what was going on. My wife knew pretty early that something kind of special was happening, but she didn't want to say anything, which I don't think I'm superstitious, but I think there might be a little bit just in every kind of athlete. But I didn't realize it was going on until we were in Oakland, and I had a reporter bring up that I had at that time, I think it was like 21 or 22 straight scoreless outings. And I was like, really? I had no idea, you know? And at that point it's like, okay, like, cool. Like, it's not going to change the way I do my job. It's not going to change the way I prepare. I'm not going to put any more pressure on myself or anything like that. If anything, like, it kind of helped me focus maybe a little more, because like, man, this is kind of special. Like, I don't think for me, being the type of pitcher that I am and was prior to that ever thought that that was something that could happen, just because I don't strike out a lot of guys. My defense is a big part of my success. And, so I don't think it ever really crossed my mind that that was happening until it was brought to my attention. And then after that, it was just like, okay, like, let's ride it as long as we can. And if it goes away, it goes away. But as long as we win a baseball game and, make a run at a playoff appearance, then that's all that really matters. And so it kind of took some of the pressure off of that.
If you were to pick one of those outings that was your favorite, which one was it?
Ooh. Probably that trip when we were in Oakland. There was a couple of guys on that team that I had played with in the past that didn't know me pretty well. And plus I had gone 1+. And so to have to go back out and kind of do a multiple inning outing, I think that's exponentially harder to kind of keep that, especially as a guy that has typically been finish out an inning, one inning in the 6th or the 7th, you kind of have that role. And then, so to be able to go through that and have a sit down and then you get back up and continue that, I think that one sticks out the most. And then the night that actually broke the record against the Angels, that was pretty cool. I did not anticipate that or anything being up on the scoreboard or, all that kind of stuff. And so it was really cool to be able to break the record at home in front of your home crowd, in front of your family. So I would say those two outings were probably the most memorable, I guess you could say, during that time.
And the whole season was just amazing for you. I mean, so everybody remembers the streak, but when you look at your actual game by game, you made 42 appearances that year. You gave up an earned run in 3 of them, which translates to what? An ERA that was below 0.7 for the year. And I think back to that bullpen of that season, and the Mariners now have developed a pretty good reputation across the league for being able to develop bullpen arms and year by year churn out good bullpens. And it all started with you. Like you, Paul Sewald, and Drew Steckenrider were that trio that I feel like trailblazed a lot of it moving forward. So
I guess you could add Swanson into that too.
Oh, and
he was
Swanson
there that
too.
year. He had an unbelievable year. That whole bullpen was at least I did. I kind of felt like we were like this band of misfits where like you're all coming from different organizations. And then you find this one place where for whatever reason you just mesh with the guys. And it's just like, we just had so much fun out there. We had fun kind of not really necessarily one-upping each other, but like there was this like competition of like, how good can we actually be, and yeah, that was insane. That year was a lot of fun. I wish I would have been able to be a part of it for more, but you got to deal with the ebbs and flows and the injuries and things like that. So
what was it during that season or when you got to Seattle that you feel like both you and the Mariners unlocked within your game that made you so successful that year?
I think it was a combination of being somewhere that you can be yourself, and also the scouting department here is unlike any other that I've ever been a part of. The information that we get that is as in depth or as personalized as you want. Like I can go to Sam and say, hey, I want to see this on my report from now on. And it's right there, and the way that they really kind of take pride in their scouting that goes into all of the series and things like that. And then just the conversation with the guys in the pen, you're sitting there and, none of us were alike, but all of us kind of fed off of each other and would really kind of watch each other's outings and go back and ask each other questions. And having Trent, who's now the pitching strategist, he was our bullpen coach at the time, having him down there and his mind to be able to kind of go through the scouting reports with you down there in the bullpen and just the transparency of, hey, like, these are your pockets. These are your guys that you need to really focus on helps too, because then you're not studying 9 guys. You're studying 4 or 5. And so you can watch those 4 or 5 throughout the game and really kind of find out, okay, where's their swing at tonight? Are they late on fastballs? Are they struggling with the breaking ball tonight? And so like there's a whole big plethora of things that kind of led into why I think the bullpens and stuff are so successful and why we were able to be successful at that.
So, Casey, we have to ask, because it had been brought to our attention over the offseason, some of the conversations that happened in this current Mariners bullpen regarding certain former Major League Baseball players and whether or not they actually existed, funny enough. So what do you think? What was one of the most either fun or best or interesting conversation that you guys had in the bullpen that had absolutely nothing to do with the game that was being played?
Ooh, I don't know. There's so many. Like there's a point where it's like you're paying attention to the game, but it's like if the starter's rolling, then it's just kind of like whatever. So like we'd play games and we'd do, just random things. I don't remember one specific conversation that we had. As much fun as we had, that bullpen that year was very business oriented. So like a lot of the conversations stemmed from past outings or things that maybe happened that were funny or whatever. And so like that's kind of a hard question to answer, I guess. And being someone that was in the game maybe a little earlier than the majority of the guys, I don't know, like maybe there was some conversations that happened, after, but all I can remember is just really enjoying just talking story with the guys and really finding out who they were as people and their families and things like that. So
just to give an example of what the current bullpen talks about on a daily basis, there is a faction of the group that does not believe Babe Ruth was actually a real person, and they spend copious amounts of time out there.
Yeah, but you have to look at who's in that bullpen now. So you have Tyler Saucedo, who's an absolute character. He's one of the funniest guys out there. He probably
the
spurred
ringleader.
That conversation.
He's the ringleader.
So like it doesn't surprise me. I mean, sometimes as competitive people will argue just to argue too. So it's like we might know we're wrong, but you know what? We're gonna give it everything we can to try to prove our case. But that's cool. I'm glad that group has found a way to pass the time, because the season is grueling, and the bullpen, you get down there and you kind of feel separated from everything, depending on where it is and all that. So to have a group of guys that you can mesh with and just enjoy every minute of it, that's awesome to hear that they've kind of found their way to deal with the monotony of everyday baseball.
Okay, so I was gonna follow up with, if you were in this bullpen, would you have to play the older brother role where you're looking at them, shaking your head and basically being like, you morons or whatever?
I don't think so, because that's part of, I think, what makes bullpens here that I've been a part of good is like you just accept people for who they are. And yeah, you might think they're ridiculous or whatever, but it's like, if that's what that guy needs to stay ready and to stay mentally okay and to, be able to do his job and have fun and not get beat down by the grind, then go for it, buddy. Mm-hmm. It's funny you say kind of that older person is like, I don't feel that way. I still feel like I'm one of the younger guys just because I might not have as much service time as, like your average 33, 34-year-old professional baseball player. And so like, that was one thing when I came over in 20, I looked at the roster and I was like, man, I have a year and a half of service time. And the only person on this team that's older than me is Kyle Seager. Like, what is going on? Like, he's got nine years already. And so like, for me, I think I try to blend in with that younger crowd just because it makes me feel a little younger too. So I don't think I would change anything.
I was going to say, speaking of the roster, I was just thinking about this as we were kind of getting ready to talk to you, but Is it kind of wild how fast big league rosters will change over the year, or years, I should say? Just because I was looking at this 2021 roster versus where we're at now. There's 6 guys on this current team that were part of that 2021 team. If you want to throw Brash and Munoz into that equation, you can. That makes it 8, but Brash never threw in an inning or in a game that year, and Munoz threw once. So if you throw those guys out, it's essentially 6. Is it kind of crazy, like what the turn looks like over the years?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of the direction that baseball is going. Is there's a lot more movement because, guys are getting traded. Guys are, you're seeing shorter contracts. You're seeing things like that. And I don't want to get into the business side of it too much, but like, you don't see these big long-term deals as much anymore as you did when I first came in back in 2010. Like, it's more of like kind of that revolving door of we'll get a guy, but if we feel like we can get 3 guys for this guy, well, then we'll just trade him and then try to sign him back in free agency, or all these kind of things. So and it makes it interesting because you never know like where your team is going to be. You're always going to be, maybe you show up to spring training and you're expecting to see, so-and-so, but they got traded mid off season and now this guy's in, and all right, let's go, welcome to the club, and go from there. And so I don't know. I think baseball is going to find its own path. Maybe you'll see, some longer contracts for guys, but I think, and I also think the injuries kind of come into there, like maybe there's been a few more injuries as of the last couple of years than in years past that caused turnover, and so who knows.
Casey, if we were going to wrap it up with you, we like to do with the players 5 rapid fire questions to conclude the interview. So leading it off, the first question is your go-to pregame and postgame meal.
Usually some kind of like beef. I'm like beef or chicken. I'm not too picky when it comes to that. Like, as long as I get to eat, I'm pretty good. But if there's a good steak, I'll definitely take that.
And what do you like post game?
It depends. If I don't pitch, I'll eat pretty heavy post game meal. But if I do pitch, it takes a little bit to kind of wind down. So it depends. But yeah, any kind of protein rich meal just to kind of help you make you feel full and go from there. Like I said, pretty much steak and chicken. Anything that you want to put on a plate, I'll eat. So
do you season it?
Oh yeah, just salt and pepper.
Good.
Okay. Second one we've got for you, your 3 favorite all-time TV shows are what?
Ooh, Friends. My wife and I are very outspoken Friends fans. And then Survivor, big Survivor fan.
Okay.
And let's see, number 3. I'm probably going to catch some flack for this, but I love Curse of Oak Island. It's a History Channel show about, Oak Island and Nova Scotia and this like conspiracy of like treasure hunting and all that kind of stuff that I'm big into it. I just enjoy it because it's like they're kind of rewriting history while they're looking for this. And so it's kind of cool to see that maybe some things happened that we didn't know about because nobody was there to tell the story. So yeah, that one, those are probably my 3 favorite.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that is the first time someone has answered that TV show.
Oh, cool.
No, this question.
That's because I'm a history nerd. I love the History Channel, and so yeah.
It sounds really interesting. I'll have to check it out.
I don't think you'll catch flack for that. That's like that's a unique
My
answer.
wife thinks it's the most boring show in all of the world because she's like, they don't ever find anything. I was like, well, yeah, they do. They find a lot of stuff, but just not the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant, whatever, But yeah, I just enjoy history. So she gives me a little razz every once in a while.
The third question, Casey, what would you be doing if you weren't playing baseball?
Ooh, I like real estate. I think I would probably get into real estate, whether it be agent or just real estate investing. I don't know. That's something that I really enjoyed. Enjoyed the process of buying homes and selling homes and stuff like that, and even in the commercial side of things. And I don't know, maybe that. I think once baseball's over, I kind of want to do something different. You spend so much time playing the game, and always help out if there's ever a need. But I know a lot of guys go into coaching and that, and it just, I don't know. I kind of want to try my hand at something else and see if I can be really successful at that.
Yeah, so you could do halftime real estate. When you sell real estate, you probably, especially investing, I assume you'd own all this property.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, you spend some time managing it, and then you can go treasure hunt.
Yeah, there you go. We'll see. I don't know. I don't have the patience for that. I don't have the patience for treasure hunting or the deep pockets, but I just enjoy watching other people do it.
All right.
Or if not treasure hunting, then you go find, it's like kind of like treasure hunting, but instead of treasure hunting, you're just going in haunted houses.
Ooh,
and
that's my
finding
wife.
Ghosts.
She likes that kind of stuff, the supernatural stuff. But I don't know. It's not for me.
No, I'm
you'd
out on
find
that.
something. I just don't know if you'd want to find it.
Yeah, I don't. I'm good. I like the safety of my house. I don't like to go into other people's business, but yeah.
Fourth question: your favorite and least favorite baseball road trip, and this can include the minor leagues. When you think least favorite,
my favorite road trip, probably when I had the opportunity to go to New York with Tampa for the first time. My wife and daughter got to come, and so we all got to experience New York City for the first time and take our daughter down to Times Square and see all the lights and do the big Disney store and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably the most memorable one. The worst one, actually, we talk about on our next episode of our podcast that's coming out, and that is a trip that we had in low A. We were in West Virginia, and we traveled from Lakewood, New Jersey to Greensboro, North Carolina on one bus. And, people will have to go on, listen to the podcast when it drops so that they can get the kind of inside story on that one. But that one was definitely the worst one I think I've ever been a part of.
Okay.
And then final question, Casey, your favorite all-time baseball player?
I don't know if I have like a favorite. I grew up in the Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa like home run race, and I had the poster of Mark McGwire when he broke the record and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think I ever really had a favorite player. I enjoyed watching John Smoltz and Greg Maddux and Adam Wainwright and Chris Carpenter and all those guys that are kind of my style of pitcher that, didn't strike out a ton of guys, got a lot of contact, got a lot of weak contact, just pitched for forever. And, so watching those guys pitch and how they navigated baseball games and that's really kind of my group that I would watch as a kid. So I would say of those four, you just pick one, so.
Those are good answers. I mean, those are really good answers. Casey, this has been awesome. I know we're rooting for you. Mariners fans are certainly rooting for you. And I think everybody's pretty excited to see where your baseball journey takes you next. And we're looking forward to seeing it. So thanks again for the time. And we know you're going to do great.
I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking to you guys. And anytime you want to talk again, just let me know.
That was a bunch of fun to have Casey Sadler on. Love talking to him. Awesome guy. If you guys haven't already, make sure to go check out the Dirt on the Diamond podcast. With that, that'll just about wrap up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. You guys know the drill. You want to listen to the full form podcast? You can do so wherever you get your audio pods. Make sure to download those episodes, leave a 5-star review, leave a written review. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that red subscribe button, leave a like on the video, drop us a comment below, all that good stuff. And check us out on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.